watching the market for the past 20 plus years, I think that the investment demand for silver is much more important to driving the price up or down than than the industrial side is.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and I'm with my friend David Stein of Kuya Silver. We're at the wrapping up portion of the Silver Symposium here in Spokane, Washington, but been a good 2 days. And David, good to catch up with you as always. How did everything go at the show for you?
Well, I thought it was a really good show for us. There's some people who come to this show. They are really interested in silver. They're quite enthusiastic, and frankly, pleasure to talk to them, to tell them the Kuya story. And I think for the most part, people didn't know about us, and so we're getting the word out, and in that sense, the show's a success.
Yeah, and of the people that you've been talking to, what do you get as the overall tone of investors in the silver market where we've had further price declines? We've seen the whole market trade down last couple of days as on the heels of the Jackson Hole meeting. And I think people are starting to realize the Fed is going to keep raising interest rates for a while. What have you thought is the view amongst the people you talk to of where silver goes from here?
I think a lot of the people here seem to be new to the space, so they're not necessarily hooked on a 28 or $30 price that we had earlier last year, as sort of a mental kind of block. So I think they're really just looking at what the fundamentals are today, which is good. Now, I think there's a lot of good opportunities, even at these prices. I think Kuya, we've got a great project that could make money at lower silver prices, and but obviously they're interested in silver. They think it's going to go up. They came to see some of the expert speakers here, who do more of the macro kind of stuff as well, and there were some good talks on that. So yeah.
Well, I guess it's interesting when you think about it. There's always two ways to look at these things. And, if you bought silver at 25 or $30 and you're down, it doesn't feel as fun yet from the idea of buying low and selling high on the lower end of the range. And one of the speakers here, Chen Lin, he says there's a much different tone in China where they're buying a lot of silver. We've seen India import numbers show that they're buying a lot of silver. And I guess it depends on perspective. And also, really, you had a decade where better portions of it, silver around $15. And how do you look at that as an investor?
I Look, I think there's a big gap between buying physical silver for investment purposes, and and what the paper silver price is. And so I there still seems to be very strong demand on the investment side, and people are paying pretty big premiums to buy silver coins and silver bars. And so I think that's just one thing that just to keep in mind. I'm not sure what it necessarily means, bullish or bearish, but the people here at the show, they're they seem to be emphasizing more of the positive, which is why they're here. I think this will be a very different show when silver's at $30 or $40 an ounce. There'll be a lot more people here, and a lot more partying and enthusiasm. But here, people are serious. They're looking for investment opportunities, and I think there's some good ones here.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And certainly at higher price, you see the enthusiasm. And I think people are a bit feeling beaten up in silver world right now. Although something I keep thinking back to that's interesting to me is that if we had gold at $1,200 or $1,000 right now, I think then you'd probably have a much different view on, all right, maybe is there something different in the terms of the role that sound money or hard metals is going to play yet. You see gold still above 1700, not too far off the highs. And one of the things that drew me into silver, and perhaps you can say if the comment if it's the same for you, is that most of the silver is being consumed. So how do you balance those together?
Well, I actually come from more of a gold background. So before I started Kuya, Um, Probably 80% of my career has been in gold, and so I know the gold market really well. Um, and I mean, at the end of the day, I think gold and silver are very, very tightly correlated, regardless of what people say about silver's kind of industrial applications and stuff like that. I mean, it does, and they're important. But at the end of the day, what drives the silver price up and down is I think the more of the monetary aspect of it and the macro factors. That being said, what you tend to see is the gold silver ratio kind of telling you where you are in terms of the sentiment of the precious metals market in general. And here where we are now with the gold silver ratio again up into the 90s, that tells you that the sentiment's really poor. And if you're a contrarian investor, you want to buy when sentiment's poor. When sentiment's very, very enthusiastic and the gold silver ratio will be probably like 30, right? That's probably that based on previous cycles, that would be kind of like a peak level that you might look at for the next bull market. But we're not there yet. We're still kind of cooking away here.
And David, it's interesting you mentioned people looking at silver as a monetary metal. We've heard a lot of debates. Some have said, all right, silver is just a commodity, it's a base metal now. There's still a lot of people buying silver, and I've wondered if you have the billion or so ounces that comes to the market, 800 million or so from the mining production and scrap and recycling, and there's a lot used in industry, and then there's that amount left over which we've seen, according to Silver Institute, go into a deficit the last couple of years. So should you ever get more mainstream or some sort of shock, I think that's what a lot of us look to. So there is that monetary demand. How is that a fair way of looking at it in the monetary versus industrial? And seems like you think that there still is that monetary component, which in my opinion is what could drive it over should that increase.
Yeah, I think that and watching the market for the past 20 plus years, I think that the investment demand for silver is much more important to driving the price up or down than the industrial side is. So even though the industrial side right now consumes about 60% or so, or two-thirds of the metal that's produced in any given year, the buyers of that tend to be very price sensitive, and they can also stockpile, so they can sort of manage their inventory based on what the silver price is. Whereas when you get investors buying silver, and especially in the end markets paying a $5 premium or a $10 premium, those guys are obviously looking for the silver price to go a lot higher, and they tend to be sticky, and they tend to be good long-term investors. So I think that's much more important to driving the silver price up. And and yeah, that's the way I see it.
And now that we have silver around $18, don't think we're going to have a lot of people starting new primary silver projects. Obviously, with Kuya, you're active in Peru, where a lot of the big copper deposits are. Anything on the overall supply side of anything that could be useful for folks as they're trying to see how these numbers will stack up going forward? Copper prices down a little bit, and I hear it's not the easiest thing to get permitted for, and anything that you've been hearing along those lines.
Well, I mean, definitely. I think if you look at an average all-in sustaining cost of the silver sector, across the whole industry, all the mines, and you also factor in, company overheads into that, we're probably below the cost of production right now. And so that's not going to be encouraging for new supply. It's and then on top of that, if we do go into some kind of recession, then that's not going to be good for copper or other base metals. So that's another factor that could play actually positively for silver, because obviously there's a lot of byproduct silver produced in those mines. So there's that. And then finally, the other big important thing in terms of driving metal supply is capital, because those big copper mines that you mentioned, they take billions of dollars to start those mines. And I don't think the capital is there right now. I don't think the big companies are going to be raising billions of dollars to build new copper mines. And likewise, I mean, silver and gold much smaller, in terms of the size of the mines. But again, I think right now it's a very kind of quiet period, just given what's been happening with the metals and also the capital markets as well. The equity markets are weak, and most mining companies are public companies, so they're stocks. And when people are losing money on Microsoft and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, that it also affects Barrick, and it affects Newmont. So I think all those things are playing into I think a positive kind of supply situation for silver, and for silver and in particular. And I think the other thing is that I always like to emphasize is that the guys who do the supply side analysis, they are always overly optimistic, because they use management they use management guidance, and management guidance is always optimistic. So the actual supply that comes out tends to be something less of what's forecast.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we have the Fed raising interest rates 75 basis points at a pop, which wouldn't seem to be a positive to be getting new copper projects online. So it's really an unusual dynamic with that silver supply that gives people at least some things to think about.
Yeah, but I mean, these things are going to take months, if not years, to play out. But you're right. I mean, the cost of borrowing money is is going up a lot, because that Fed rate is actually goes into the kind of the risk-free rate, and then you have to pay a premium on that risk-free rate to borrow money. So it's now a lot more expensive to borrow money if you're going to build your $1 billion copper mine, or your $100 million gold mine. So that's another factor that is definitely negative for supply.
Well, it should be interesting going forward, and perhaps you could let us know how things are going with Kuya. You're down in Peru and getting close to going online with production, and how are things coming along there?
Well, look, at a time like this, I think it's very useful to just look back a few months and revisit, because we've really accomplished a lot in the last in the last really since the beginning of this year, and even going back to late last year. We were able to consolidate a much bigger land position around the Bethania mine. That's really important for the future growth. It's really transformed Bethania from a mine scale project to a district scale project, which is really, really cool. We got our resource out, which was very, very positive. We made new discoveries, which are going to add to a future resource at Bethania. And then we got our PEA out as well, which demonstrated very low costs, low capex at Bethania. So to give some economic model to our numbers. So we've really ticked a lot of boxes this year. Of course, there's nothing you can do about the market. So the market's been going down. I think all silver equities have been going down in price. But we've really added value. I think we're a much more valuable company today than we were when we were trading at $3. And that's the way small cap investing goes. So it's it's a good opportunity in terms of going forward. We're looking at low capex ways to get some early production here. And I would just say stay tuned, and we'll make some announcements on that in the next couple months. But we do believe we can do that, and that would be something to further de-risk the project and really differentiate Kuya from all the other juniors out there.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before, but even at $18 silver, still a slightly higher price than what you modeled out when you took over the company.
Yeah, when we initially made our acquisition of the Bethania mine as a private company, the silver price was around $16-17. This was in 2017, and then it actually went down to about 14, I think, in 2018. So And we were confident that even at that price we could make money with this mine, and at the end of the day, we're not. I don't think we're really that sensitive to the silver price. We're more sensitive to the capital markets and the share price and how people sort of perceive us as a silver investment, and so that's what we really need to work on, and um, some of that is in our control, some of that's out of our control.
And last one for you. Obviously, you've talked about building the mill, although having the option to get cash flow generated a little sooner by doing some toll milling. Can you give us an update on how that's coming together?
Yeah, so we talked about that in the PEA that came out. I think just a couple of things to look at or to look forward to. We need to get a toll milling agreement with one of the local mills, and that's just a commercial agreement that we're shopping around trying to get the best deal for Kuya. And then likewise with we will want to get an offtake agreement. We produce several concentrates, which is how we get our silver. So we need a metals trader, or we would like a metals trader to buy that from us, and uh, because that makes our lives a lot easier. So we're in discussions related to that. Again, that's just a commercial agreement, that we just try and get the best deal we can. And once those two things are kind of signed up, then I think we can move forward and get into production.
Are you expecting that before the end of 2022?
Yeah, I mean, it could be very soon. It could be within a few months. I mean, it's not something that you want to rush, and you don't want to look desperate, um, but at the same time, it could happen very, very quickly.
Well, that's good to hear. And folks can find out more at kuyasilver.com. And David, thanks again for being here at the Silver Symposium, and congratulations moving things forward and whatever environment the price brings. But good to see a lot of silver investors together again this week and to catch up with you in person.
That's right. Yeah, this is the first time we met in person, and it was very, very so exciting.
Well, good to be here with you, and we'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Absolutely.